A story is currently burning through the Nigerian digital space with extraordinary speed, and the sheer scale of its reach demands that we stop, examine it carefully, and tell you the unvarnished truth. Across X, Facebook, and densely populated WhatsApp broadcast groups, millions of Nigerians, particularly those deeply invested in the political fate of the Southeast, have been sharing what appears to be a momentous political breakthrough. The claim is simple and seductive. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has offered Mazi Nnamdi Kanu a structured set of terms and conditions for his immediate release, and Kanu has accepted them. The posts imply that quiet consultations have concluded behind closed doors, that a constitutional process is already in motion, and that the embattled IPOB leader could be walking free within months. For the millions who have lived through years of sit-at-home orders, economic paralysis, and unresolved grief in the Southeast, this story did not just travel fast. It felt like oxygen. But it is false, entirely and demonstrably false. Independent fact-checkers, including the Nigerian Democratic Report, traced this claim to its origin this month and found a manufactured deepfake video at its core. The fabrication was technically sophisticated. Older, unrelated footage of President Tinubu inaugurating the Southern Parkway project in the Federal Capital Territory was spliced together with an artificially cloned voice delivering promises about Kanu's release. When the video was subjected to forensic analysis using standard AI detection tools, it was flagged overwhelmingly as artificial content. No statement has emerged from the presidency. No confirmation has come from the Federal Ministry of Information. Not a single credible legal representative of Nnamdi Kanu has acknowledged that any terms were offered or accepted. This is not a rumor that got out of hand. It is a calculated misinformation operation, engineered with precision and deployed into a political environment where desperate hope was always going to make millions of people believe what they needed to believe. To understand why this deepfake was so effective, you must first understand where Nnamdi Kanu actually stands within the Nigerian legal system today. The reality is grim. On November 20, 2025, Justice Omotosho of the Federal High Court in Abuja delivered his verdict following a protracted terrorism trial that had wound through years of procedural battles, appeals, and dramatic reversals. Kanu, who had ultimately chosen to boycott presenting a formal defense, citing a complete loss of faith in the integrity of the proceedings, was found guilty on all 7 counts of terrorism-related charges brought against him by the federal government. The sentence was the maximum permitted under the law, life imprisonment, running concurrently alongside other significant custodial terms. Following the conviction, Kanu was transferred out of Abuja and relocated to the Sokoto Correctional Center in the far north of the country, a facility chosen precisely for its distance from the Southeast and its high-security designation. He is currently serving a life sentence in that facility, stripped of his former legal team, and by all credible accounts, intending to argue his appeal personally. That is the factual baseline. That is where the law has placed him, not in secret negotiations, in a maximum security prison. Yet the political pressure on President Tinubu to intervene in this crisis is entirely real, and it would be dishonest to pretend otherwise. The economic devastation visited upon the Southeast by years of enforced sit-at-home compliance and persistent violent insecurity has pushed regional leaders to a point of acute desperation. That desperation was placed on full, undeniable public display at the 2026 National Traditional and Religious Leaders Summit on Health, held at the State House Conference Center in Abuja this past February. In a moment that immediately seized national attention, the traditional ruler of Ezema Olo Kingdom in Enugu State, Dr. Lawrence Agbubuzu, abandoned the summit's formal health agenda and directed his words personally at the president. He told Tinubu, without diplomatic softening, that the ball was entirely in his court. He appealed to the president to use his executive authority to pursue a political solution or, at a minimum, to facilitate Kanu's deportation to Kenya or the United Kingdom. He warned that the youth of the region had become so volatile, so distrustful of every tier of leadership, that they now viewed their own traditional rulers as complicit agents of Abuja. The anger, he said, was no longer containable through appeals to patience. That scene captures the precise nature of what is actually happening around the Kanu question in 2026. It is not a structured negotiation. It is a public cry for political mercy from leaders who have exhausted every formal channel and arrived, empty-handed, at the president's door. The presidency's silence in response to those pleas is itself a statement of policy. Throughout his administration, President Tinubu has maintained a deliberate distance from the judicial dimension of the Kanu case, allowing the courts to proceed without executive commentary. The fact that Kanu was convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment during Tinubu's tenure is not incidental. It reflects a political calculus in which the cost of intervening in the case, the friction it would generate within the security establishment, the message it would send across all other geopolitical zones, the institutional legitimacy it would challenge, is judged to outweigh the political benefits of a pardon. Granting executive clemency to a man whose organization remains a proscribed terrorist entity under Nigerian law would not be a quiet act. It would be one of the most consequential and contested decisions of any administration in recent memory. There is no evidence that the Tinubu government has appetite for it. The deepfake video was dangerous precisely because it exploited the gap between what people urgently want to be true and what the system has delivered. It offered a comforting fiction dressed in the aesthetic of legitimate news, calibrated to reach the most emotionally invested audiences and spread before scrutiny could catch up. That it succeeded so spectacularly is a warning about the information environment in which Nigerian public discourse is now operating. As this case moves forward through the remainder of 2026, the focus will remain on the appellate courts. Kanu's legal team, in whatever configuration it currently exists, will continue to pursue remedies through the judiciary. Regional leaders, governors, and federal legislators from the southeast will continue their lobbying campaigns in Abuja, navigating the delicate mathematics of political leverage without the moral weight of a conviction that the federal government can and does use against them. The ECOWAS Court's 2023 ruling against Nigeria regarding Kanu's rights remains an unresolved layer of this legal architecture, though its enforcement continues to be a matter of diplomatic posture rather than practical compliance. None of those processes will be resolved by a viral video. None of them will be accelerated by mass sharing of fabricated content. What that content does, instead, is generate cycles of false hope followed by deeper disillusionment, eroding whatever trust still exists in credible information and responsible journalism. Until a verifiable, official pronouncement emerges from the highest courts of this land, or a legally binding executive order is formally published by the federal government, any claim that Nnamdi Kanu's release has been negotiated and agreed must be treated as what it is: fiction. We owe it to ourselves and to the gravity of this story to demand proof before we share. The Nnamdi Kanu saga is one of the most consequential and unresolved narratives in contemporary Nigerian history. It deserves rigorous honesty, not manufactured comfort. Stay informed, stay critical, and do not let desperation make you a distributor of lies.